Welcome back to the EMRS training. The purpose of this session is to show you how to enter or create euthanasia and disposal records, as well as cleaning and disinfection records. Both create those and update them as necessary when information comes to you that allows you to do so. So the first thing to do when looking for or looking to create euthanasia and disposal records, probably the most important thing to do is to make sure that they don't already exist. So navigate to the investigation on the premises and the animal business that you're working with. And you can see that I have an open investigation here that I'm working with. So I have already done that piece of the navigation. The first thing to do is to double check and see if those investigations exist. So as you see, I've activated the caret next to the investigation number, and I'm looking for either euthanasia and disposal or cleaning and disinfection records. So you can see what those icons look like and where those are located. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that the euthanasia and disposal records have not been created and they are blank. So that's a good sign. And I'm also going to look for cleaning and disinfection, because oftentimes the disease reporting officer has already created these, right? But we just want to double check to make sure before we dump off and do something like that. So we notice that neither of those types of those records have been created for this investigation. So that gives us the all clear to go ahead and create them. So navigating back to the investigation, I just noticed that I clicked its link here in the upper left-hand corner, and that takes me back to the main investigation window. And remember to add any record to an entity. We're going to again look for our follow-up dialogues from this investigation. So I'll activate that, and as that window opens, again, we'll get this long list of things that we can add to this investigation. And as you can see, the fourth choice down is a euthanasia and disposal, and then the next choice is cleaning and disinfection. So we're going to start with euthanasia and disposal. We'll add that record and click next to tell it that's what we want to do. And notice that it's asking for resource assignments. And at this point in time, I'm going to, I don't know that, right? I don't know who is exactly going to do this work. So I'm going to leave it unassigned. But the main questions then that I have to answer in the dialogue are whether or not animals are going to be euthanized. And in this case, the answer is yes for this situation. And whether or not they will be disposed. And the answer again is yes. And I'm also not going to assign the disposal because at this point in time, I don't know who's going to do that work. So I'm going to click next. And just that quickly, I've created a euthanasia and disposal. Notice that its status is pending because it's not in progress. We don't have a resource assigned, so that is also blank. But it tells us that it's on as part of this investigation. And then the other thing that it allows us to do is add details to this euthanasia and disposal. We're going to do that in a moment, but I'm going to wait and navigate and show you another way to do that. But for efficiency's sake, obviously I would normally just jump off and go straight through the most efficient data entry pathway. In this case, I'm going to quit and say next to finish this dialogue. And again, we're going to check our work. So using the caret for this investigation, I'm going to navigate to see, again, if it actually created the record I wanted. And yes, indeed, it actually did. And so here's the hot link to that. So I will go ahead and open that up by clicking on that ED record. And you notice that now a full euthanasia and disposal record opens. And you can see that we chose yes, so it says that we are going to report that animals were euthanized, and now it gives us a place to record a lot of information about how this euthanasia is going to happen, when it's going to happen, and some scheduling and management pieces. And as we scroll down, it also shows you the same thing for disposal. And as you can see, we had a chance to add some details, but those we opted not to do that at this point in time. Okay? At that point in time. So there's just that quickly, I've created that record. And similar to the exams, we can now, if we know who's going to do this work, we can assign this work. So again, if I want to add something to this, I choose the follow-ups, and notice that one of my choices is to assign or reassign this euthanasia and disposal. So now that I have that information, if I have information coming from the field or I've been notified who's going to do this work, I can assign this to a particular person. So I will do that at this time. And again, I'm going to choose local resources. And I'm going to, I know that the person heading up this crew and is responsible is a person named Glenn Bailey. And notice I started typing that again as a personal preference. You can always use the search windows to scroll through lists of people. But I started typing and then hit enter, and it started searching for me. And both euthanasia and disposal are going to be accomplished by Glenn. So I can start typing and again either activate the search window. Oops. And obviously I can't type. And notice again that Glenn pops up and I can put his name there. So now that I've assigned that, just that quickly, it's updated it to say its status is now assigned. Remember, it was pending before, and you can see on the record behind it that it's still pending. And it's been assigned to Mr. Bailey. And I'm going to go ahead and quit. And remember, to refresh your records, you can either use F5 or this refresh tool up in your browser. And so I'm going to go ahead and refresh that, and notice that it went from pending to assigned, right down here in the status. And now it's showing that Mr. Bailey is going to do that work. I can also, if I know how many animals are, estimated number of animals to be euthanized, I can put that in at this point in time. So I know that there are approximately 25 animals on this premises that need euthanized. That's also the same number, the estimated number that we're going to dispose in this case. And the euthanasia method, again, these are all drop downs, is going to be CO2 carts and containers, right? And what that is going to be scheduled for tomorrow. So I can, again, use the calendar to say when is the scheduled start date and when is the scheduled end date. And since this is a small flock, we're going to say that it's going to happen in the same day, and we think it's going to only take 2 hours. We're going to be optimistic. So notice that these are the scheduled dates. These are proposed dates. But when we have the information that tells us when the euthanasia actually starts and is completed, then we'll fill in those dates as appropriate. So again, all of these, you can tell that all of these are, as you put your mouse over them, you can, and click in those boxes, you can activate the choices, either the drop-down list or the date windows. And then there's a free text area for comments as needed here. Okay. So we also, now if we are further down the line in how this work is happening, and we do have verified euthanasia records from the field, and we want to add those, that is when we actually account for the actual numbers of animals that were euthanized. And to do that, again, we want those are called euthanasia E&D details. They're the actual details of, this is the summary page of the euthanasia and disposal. But if we want to account for, and we do want to account for the actual numbers, groups of animals that were euthanized on this property, we do that by doing the follow-up and adding those details. So again, we'll activate the follow-up. And notice that the first choice, the last time we came to this follow-up, we assigned it, and this time we're going to add the details. So, as I said, we're further down the line in the progress of what's happening, and we are asked what item was euthanized or disposed, and we're going to say it was an animal group in this case, and we know that we count animals in head. I don't have a further description. I don't need to filter because this is a small property and there aren't a lot of groups that I need to filter through to look for. But I'm asking if I have the the documentation now to say that, yes, there were 25 animals euthanized, and those same 25 animals were disposed of. And I can choose next. And it's going to ask me to select a group that is on this premises. And notice that there are some lambs that are on this premises, that are recorded on this premises. So if I activate that caret, it also shows me that there's a group of chickens that live on this premises. And of course, obviously, I'm going to choose the 25 chickens that were euthanized. And I will say next. And you notice that it says a new E&D detail has been created. And obviously, if there were multiple groups euthanized, I could choose the second option and create more and just keep this dialogue going. But in this case, this is the only group that was euthanized, so I'm going to say quit. I am done. And when it finishes, again, I will refresh this because it still doesn't know that I added that. So I'll go and refresh that, and if I scroll down, now you can see that there is an E&D detail associated with this record that actually accounts for those animals being euthanized on this premises. All right, so to get back to where we were, I can go back to that euthanasia and disposal summary, and I can say that it was actually accomplished. If we jump in time and say that this was accomplished on that day, we can give it the date that it started and it ended on that date. Right? So we can fill in those details as appropriate. Okay? And the same thing with disposal. If these animals were buried on site, we can say which party did it. That were state and federal personnel. We can give the dates. The same thing with the completed, and you can, again, fill in those details as appropriate. So that's how to manage euthanasia and disposals. So if we want to now move on to cleaning and disinfection, after euthanasia and disposal is accomplished, we're navigating back to the investigation, because again, this is something that we want to add to the investigation. We're going to, again, activate our follow-ups. And remember that that was one of the choices when we choose this dialogue. So we've already done the euthanasia and disposal, so now we're going to create a cleaning and disinfection record for this same premises. So I'll choose cleaning and disinfection. Again, I'm going to pretend that I'm early in the process and I don't know who's going to be in charge of either doing the cleaning or overseeing the cleaning and disinfection, but notice that it gives you some choices as to, it's assuming that if you're creating this record that there will be cleaning. So the next thing it asks is whether or not there will be disinfection as well. And so you can choose the appropriate choice, and obviously I'm going to say yes. And I'm also going to say that yes, there is a final inspection, but again, choose the option that's correct for the incident that you're working on. And choose next. And notice that it created a pending cleaning and disinfection, but it's still obviously pending. So I'm going to go ahead and say I'm going to head and add C&D follow-ups. I will choose next. And obviously I don't want to create a new one because I've just created that. I can either assign it to a resource or I can update it. I'm going to tell it that I want to update it. And again, I would probably assign it to a resource. But notice that when I say that, it tells me that it has many different fields and that you can edit those fields directly on the form. So the cleaning and disinfection form is one of those forms where you do want to just, like the euthanasia and disposal, that you can do most of that updating strictly on the form. So I just wanted you to see what it gives you as an option when you run that dialogue. We'll go back and again check our work. So from the investigation, now we're looking for our cleaning and disinfection. And here it is. Here is our pending cleaning and disinfection record. So we'll open that. And this looks very much like the euthanasia and disposal. Again, we have lots of choices as far as drop downs, and those show up when you put your cursor over them. to activate, you can see that they're turning yellow, and that then that means that there's something there that I can add. Notice that it already assumed that the state and federal personnel were doing the cleaning, but that doesn't mean we can't change that if that information changes, right? So again, we can assign dates, we can assign people, we can add comments in the comments field. We can associate it to a positive status if this is a positive flock, which obviously it would be if we were doing this work. And again, the same thing for the disinfection method. You can choose how the disinfection is going to, what method is going to be used, who's going to do it, and which disinfection was applied. Right, so there's again, lots of drop downs and dates so that you can fill those in appropriately. And then once the final, notice that we said that a final inspection was required, so this defaults to yes. But again, we can change it. I just click that and it changed to no. If I click it again, it changes back to yes. So that is a toggle. And again, you can do the scheduling of the start and end date, and then put in the date that the final inspection actually happens once you have the documentation from the field. So hopefully that was a quick overview of how to create those records. And again, if you need help, please don't hesitate to reach out to your local EMRS specialist or a network associate for more assistance. Thanks. Bye-bye.